People being brainwashed, even today, Justice Carmen.
I hear, and my wife is here, she knows it's true. Sometimes I'm at the club, working out. Then a lady comes up.
Sir, Justice, can I ask you a question? Right in the middle of my workout, the person has no boundaries. And so they don't say, I'm ruder than they already think I am. I say, of course.
Now that I've been out of the TSC for 2 years, why don't you release the source code?
Then I reply and say, ma'am, sir, do you know what source code is? I do. It's that thing to rig the election. She says, no, look, source code. To make it really simple for you, I tell the person, my interlocutor, it's a translator, is that you enter the number and it through, a mechanism, it says that this number belongs to this voter, to this candidate, but at the same time, it doesn't identify who voted for whom, so that the secrecy of the vote is maintained. And this, a year before the elections, is made available to all parties, the public prosecutor's office, universities, and so on. And the conversation always ends the same way. Justice, release the source code. That is, on social media. They were mechanisms of brainwashing. How? With algorithms designed so that the person would absorb that information, that false information, that misinformation, in the best way. Look, social networks have all the information about us. So it becomes easy to carry out highly targeted brainwashing. And this has been gradually increasing. Who here hasn't heard, doesn't have a friend or relative? No one. The craziness is so big that families started fighting because of electronic voting machines. Christmas conversations turned into talks about electronic voting machines. Who here hasn't heard a relative or a friend talk about it? I pressed the number. I'm not going to say which numbers here because we're in an election period. Yeah, I pressed X, but Y came out. X. Oh, this one is recording us, you can be sure. Oh. Then you ask the person, are you sure? Why didn't you complain at the time? Yeah, because it's not. And then they start circulating short videos, right? People recording. You looked at that, it was so ridiculous, there was editing. But this started gaining traction, such misinformation. So we had like this in 2000. We had the general elections in 2018. The Puinca in the 2022 elections, which were the elections where Justice Carmen and I were together at the TSC. We had, as the electoral judiciary, in defense of democracy, of voters' freedom of choice, and of ballot secrecy, to interpret the electoral rules, the constitutional and electoral rules, based on this new reality. And look, why do you?
Porque você pode.
And revoke the registration, revoke the mandate, declare ineligibility for abuse of political power, abuse of economic power, and abuse of the media. And you can't do that for abusing social media to spread disinformation. And it was said, no, social networks are not media outlets. They are technology companies. A city council candidate who abuses the local newspaper, which has 600 copies, could be convicted for abuse, could be sanctioned for misusing the media. The whole disinformation scheme that reaches millions and millions of voters through technology companies. Well, there's no logic in that at all. And it was a big, big leap by Brazil's electoral courts, by the superior electoral court, by stating that the use of social networks, disinformation on social media, would constitute misuse of the media, with all the consequences of that, especially because today, already in 2022, even more so today, the biggest means of communication are social networks. No one here, or rather, almost no one here, goes a day without checking the news, without watching videos on social networks. Now, not everyone watches the TV news every day. There are the so-called quote-unquote, because nowadays everyone is an influencer. Yeah, the influencers. There are influencers who have a bigger audience than most TV news programs. So, look, if it's the tool that brings news, information, and a large amount of misinformation reaches voters through the media, and from that it was possible for the Superior Electoral Court to issue regulations for this fight. In the 2022 elections, then in the elections presided over by Justice Carmen in 2024, and now in the 2026 elections, with a problem, or with a big problem, from 2022 until now. Disinformation through social networks has been boosted by the use and growing development of artificial intelligence. In videos and voices were still just beginning. Today we have videos, even this conversation we're having here, with artificial intelligence. It takes the whole image and changes it. It's not just what you're saying that gets changed, it even alters the lip movements. It changes it, because if someone does lip reading, it looks like you're saying something you didn't actually say. This is extremely dangerous for manipulating the electorate. In the elections in Argentina, we had on the day of the vote, a video circulated in which one of the candidates said he was dropping out of the race and supporting another candidate. Fake video, artificial intelligence. Look, on the eve of the election, it's impossible for you to undo the damage. How to regulate this, how to supervise, and how to prevent this from destroying the voters' freedom of choice through this massive disinformation. Well, it's both preventive and punitive. And that's very important. The Superior Electoral Court, already for the 2024 elections, included a regulation about artificial intelligence. Now, for 2026, someone could say, but that doesn't prevent its use. Yes, the penal code exists, and it doesn't prevent crime from happening. But it points out that whoever does it will be held responsible. This is the most important issue. In addition to all the oversight prior to the elections, all candidates must be absolutely aware that if on the eve they want to use disinformation mechanisms enhanced by artificial intelligence, that will lead to their candidacy being revoked. Because if not, they'll use it.
They'll use it, they can change it.
The will of a portion of the electorate.
And if there are no consequences,
we will be normalizing a terrible situation of attack on democracy and the free will of the voter. The voter can, but the voter changed their vote. They changed their vote because they were bombarded with completely false information that, because of technology, seemed true. And it's no use a week later having that come up, fact or fake. Oh, that was actually false. The election is over. So then the Electoral Court has to punish severely. On the electoral issue, just one thing, and Justice Carmen knows better than I do, as she has already presided over the Superior Electoral Court twice. Just one thing, I wouldn't say it prevents it completely, but it reduces it a lot. And then the practice of illegal acts by the candidates, the fear of being removed from office afterwards. The fine, they don't even care about the fine, especially since they won't pay it with their own money. Now, the fear, and then, thank you, and then it is having their office revoked, losing their seat, that changes things. That has an influence. That's how it was. And that's another big cause championed by Justice Carmen. That's how we at the TSC managed to greatly reduce fraud involving women's candidacies. Until then, as everyone knows, 30% of the seats for proportional representation seats must be for women. What did the parties do? They used fake candidates. They would call a woman, but she didn't get any votes. Not even she would vote for herself. In the polling station where she voted, there wasn't even her own vote for herself. But until then, only she lost the election. Only she was convicted and became ineligible. Also because of a change at the time of our composition of the Superior Electoral Court, including the issuance of a precedent at the Superior Electoral Court. If there is fraud, the entire slate, the entire party list is revoked. There was fraud, they elected the man through fraud. All of them are removed from office. In the same way, little was done to curb the abusive use of disinformation on social media. From the moment the TSC, the Linden case, federal deputy from Paraná was removed from office exactly because of the use on election day. See, they wait to use it on the eve or on the day itself because there's no time to debunk the story. So what's left? Cancel the candidacy registration or remove the office holder from office. And the electoral justice system has been making that very clear. And for all candidates, regardless of their background, ideology, or party, the voter, both men and women, must be respected. The freedom to choose based on all kinds of information, not on manipulated misinformation. And the secrecy of the vote guaranteed by the electronic voting machines, which have never, is not just the two cases, was proven. There has never been a case where any fraud with electronic voting machines was proven. It's the only country in the world, we are the fourth largest democracy in the world in terms of number of voters. It's the only country in the world that announces the results on the same day, whether in general elections or in municipal elections. Just a few hours after the voting ends, it announces the results.